New York, new rock, live music and promotion.
Ready? Yeah, go ahead. I'd like to introduce our guest today. She's McLaughlin, and she's the editor-in-chief of CMJ Magazine, and we're really pleased to have her here with us at New York, New Rock.
I'm glad to be out of the cold, thank you.
Yes, it is freezing out. I'd like to start the interview off by asking you a little bit about your background. Were you a rock journalist before? What did you do before CMJ?
I guess that I've been at CMJ now for 2.5 years, and before that I was at Rockpool Magazine, which is another industry tip sheet, similar to CMJ but a little bit smaller, a little bit different in scope, and I was there for 5 years. And before that I bartended after college. I was an English major, and I had interests in music and radio, and a person was leaving Rockpool who actually I went to high school with, and she told me about it, and I was moving to New York, and I applied and I got it. I did a little bit of radio in college, but unlike most of the people that work at CMJ now, I didn't do radio exclusively through college. I was never a music director. I did some in high school, and my father was an arts journalist as well, so from small up I was around.
So you were never a DJ on radio stations?
No, about a year or so I did fill-ins and whatever, but I went to Barnard and WKCR in New York, and it's tremendously difficult to get on the air there when you're a student, because they don't have a well, they do have a grandfather clause, I guess. They have a lot of people that have graduated a long time ago, so it's difficult to push your way on. If you're a freshman, you're like, yeah, I really like this punk rock, and they don't really have a lot of format for that, so I was not doing that in college. But I was always writing, and as an English major, you have to write a lot. So.
Did you do any kind of reviews at Rockpool, or was it mostly a tip sheet? You did.
Oh yeah, I did. I wrote about everything there. I mean, we came out every other week, unlike CMJ, which is now weekly. Also used to be bi-weekly. And Rockpool's focus was kind of split between traditional alternative rock and then alternative dance music. So I could find myself writing about any high energy stuff, and then going into writing about the first Nirvana single, for example, or something like that. Yeah, we all did reviews there.
Well, I enjoyed your review in this week's issue of that band Scissors.
Oh, thanks.
So she's also a journalist.
Yep.
So how long were you with Rockpool?
I was there for 5 years, almost to the day, I think. And I started out as, I believe, as an assistant editor, and I gradually worked so I started at the bottom of a very small staff, but I worked my way up till by the end I was the senior editor and was running everything and doing everything. So.
How long have you been with CMJ now?
2.5 years. After I decided to leave Rockpool, just then, ironically enough, the same day that I told someone I was leaving Rockpool, the same person who was the, I guess he was the senior editor at CMJ, told me he was leaving for Spin, and asked me did I want the job, and it was just so coincidental, and so I took a month to think about it and hang out and be unemployed, and then I decided to take it. So.
Chill for a minute.
Yeah, just a little bit. So it was a happy coincidence.
That's great. What are your specific duties as editor-in-chief?
My specific duties are to oversee the day-to-day direction of the magazine, which means that I listen to a lot of stuff, consider it if we want to review it or not. I collect all the input from the rest of the staff and decide what should be reviewed. I assign that stuff out. I sell advertising. I talk to a lot of major labels day to day to make sure that their records that I'm aware of when they're coming out, so we can review them in a timely fashion. I do a lot of editing.
Pretty much do everything.
Yeah.
Are you the final word when it comes to, the weekly format? What goes in, what stays out?
In cases where it's a really big deal, we will call in our president and the founder, Bobby Haber. But but he is a little less, he's very less hands-on in the day-to-day stuff because he's just involved in so much stuff, and he has also in the past gotten too involved hands-on wise, and so he couldn't step back, and now he has the opportunity, right, now he has the opportunity to step back and actually do what he's best at, which is you know, meeting people and telling people all about the 3 different companies we have and the 3 products we have and stuff, and he doesn't have to be involved in, like, well, do we review that specific record or not? That's more my job, but in cases where it's a real big deal, then he and I consult and figure it out.
Great. Speaking of Robert Haber, he founded CMJ.
Yep.
And I'd like to know why. Is it getting too noisy in here? We've got the cappuccinos. Feel free to have a sip whenever you need that warmth.
Just so caffeine.
Why did he create CMJ, and how long ago, and how many years has it been out?
He attended Brandeis University up in Massachusetts, and he was very active at WBRS, which is the radio station up there. And when he left college, he realized that there was no print publication that was catering to the college market, catering to what he saw as a very exciting, burgeoning scene, alternative rock scene. So went back, instead of joining the family company, he went in the basement, he started printing up, I guess, a little one-sheet, which had a few reviews, and he started getting people to report their weekly chart. Before that, or bi-weekly chart, before that, people reporting charts, they just didn't do it. It wasn't really a thing that stations did, or that college radio stations did.
They weren't that organized at the time.
No. So, and since then it started growing and growing and growing. And it
Big
was
time.
just, yeah, yeah. And now, I guess that was, I always forget how old we are. I think we're about 16 or 17 years old, I think.
I didn't realize that CMJ has been around that long.
Yeah, well, before it was just, I mean, the really old.
I subscribed before when it was, stapled together on those big pieces of paper, and you had to, like, oh, wow, you know, did I chart? You know, like looking down.
I know, you needed a microscope for some of that stuff. But, yeah, we had a format change about a year and a half ago where we went to smaller and
glossy,
perfect bound, I think, and glossy and
color,
and
it looks great.
Yeah. We have a new art staff that's in there now, and they're really great. They're very creative.
Are you trying to go in any particular direction with the look of the magazine? Do you want to fashion yourself after any particular magazines that are out there now?
I think that if you look at most tip sheets are horribly lacking in any kind of artistic thought behind them, I guess.
I have seen them,
and they're printed on crappy paper, and we really were frustrated because the work that we put into it was so good. I think that the writing was great, and the information was there, and it should be presented in a nice looking way, and we were trying to just make it look a little bit more professional, so it wasn't like, what's this fly-by-night thing that people are, that there's a huge company behind it. It didn't represent what we were doing.
It's great. I hadn't seen it in a while. I was really impressed by it. Megan, who are your main subscribers?
I would say that, in general, everybody that subscribes to the CMJ New Music Report is in the music industry. Whether usually that's the primary subscribers, I guess, would be radio stations, college radio stations, and record companies. And the two of them interface with each other through CMJ and interface with each other not at all connected with us, but the radio stations report their chart to us, and the record companies want the radio stations to report their records to us, so it all kind of comes in a little triangle.
Together. It's really a lot more interwoven than I even thought.
And I guess we have retail stores and a lot of bands, a lot of management companies and stuff, but the main body of people would be record companies and radio stations.
Record companies and alternative.
Yeah, college radio stations.
Yeah. Commercial stations?
There's only a handful of alternative commercial stations.
That's true.
And so they get the magazine, but that's like 30. So it's really a very negligible part of our subscription base.
Does CMJ plan to expand? Will we see CMJ on the newsstands? I really love it.
Well,
and I get spin, and I want to subscribe to CMJ because I just feel like it's very cutting edge. I'm not just getting spoon-fed stuff. I'm able to discover new bands and a lot of good information.
People have been saying that to Bobby for years now, which is why about a year and a half ago we started the CMJ New Music Monthly, which is a consumer magazine which sells for about 1/10 of the subscription price of the New Music Report, and it's a little bit different format. It's on newsstands everywhere, I hear now. We print up about 75,000
CMJ New Music
Monthly. Yeah. So
is that the one that comes along with the CDs?
Yes, that's the one. Each issue is packaged with a CD, which is a compilation CD that has tracks by different artists that could or could not be reviewed in the magazine, which is a real great selling point. I mean, I think that's Bobby wanted to let people read about the music and hear about it, not just read about it all the time.
It's very important. I loved getting those CDs in the mail.
Yeah.
So that would be like the new CMJ CD.
Yeah.
Basically comes out.
Yep.
And you've always had this CD.
Well, we have two. It gets very confusing.
I'm a little
we have two CD series. One is called Certain Damage, and that's the one that's always been coming with the New Music Report, and that is usually tracks purchased by record companies to promote an upcoming release that's sent with the magazine 10 times a year with the New Music Report. And then there's a completely separate CD with a separate staff and separate everything that comes along with the New Music Monthly. And sometimes there are similar tracks, but the two don't have anything to do with each other. One person on the New Music Report staff handles all the Certain Damage stuff, and someone on the editorial staff of the New Music Monthly handles all the consumer CDs.
You guys are doing a lot.
Yeah.
So we've got the CMJ Weekly, we've got the CMJ New Music Monthly, and
then we have the CMJ New Music Marathon.
Right, the marathon, which we'll definitely get into in this interview, as that's a really important part of what CMJ offers. Can you tell me how CMJ differs from other tip sheets?
I guess that we like to think that CMJ is a lot, it gives you a very honest focus on new music. We obviously, because we're a tip sheet and the very nature of a tip sheet, we do not give any negative reviews. We try to put a positive spin on something, even if the person reviewing it does not have a particular taste for it. They attempt to find something good in it so they can let people know what's good about this particular record. And because we're a tip sheet,
very unbiased.
Yeah, we try to be. I mean, I think that you can tell when sometimes you can tell when somebody really loves a record or is kind of lukewarm on it, but other tip sheets are a little bit more narrow in their focus, and most other tip sheets only have a section devoted to alternative, and our whole magazine is devoted to alternative genres of all kinds except for classical. So we have a jazz section and a blues section and a reggae section and dance and hip-hop and whatever, but it's all got kind of an alternative bent to it. And we're the only people that put alternative, like rock artists on the cover and make them our focal point, make them the total focus of the issue. We're referred to, I mean, our name stands for College Media Journal, which some people think is College Music Journal, which does kind of reflect what we're writing about, what we're doing. And other tip sheets are a little bit more, I guess, broad in what they're covering, but then because they're covering, AOR or pop or top 40 or whatever, and we don't do that. We just do alternative stuff.
So I had a future question, but now that you're bringing it up about the different styles that you review, it's mostly alternative rock that CMJ is interested in reviewing, and but you do have different sections. You do touch on all different styles of music.
We try. I think that what the radio stations report to us is primarily alternative rock, and obviously that's a big focus point for what we decide to review and what we cover. But we also are constantly trying to let people know about other kinds of music, even within the main section of the magazine, which is called the Jackpot section, which is just regular reviews. We throw in, if it's really great, we take a jazz record and put it in there and write about it there. And same thing with hip-hop or whatever kind of genre music. We don't exclude it because it's not traditional alternative rock. In fact, I think most of the staff has gone on several panels at whatever convention and just said it's not all about white guys in their 20s being angry. It's
right.
About,
I was going to say, how do you do you get any grief from different groups? I mean, do you have to balance
It's,
you know,
I think that because of space
including everyone
and everything, you always have to balance it, and we're always trying to put something different on the cover of the magazine that maybe people won't know about, so we don't just automatically knee-jerk pick the next. I mean, I don't want to single out a band, but an REM record does not automatically make it on the cover because it's REM. It has to be a really great record, just like some old blues guy that, you know, I've never heard of, but I really like it when someone brings it into me. May make it on the cover because it's really great, not because of who he is or
Right.
what kind of music he's playing.
What about the categorizing of music? There's often been so much conflict in the music industry. Black musicians or Hispanic musicians doing rock saying, "Oh, we always get put in the R&B section," or I mean,
Right.
do you encounter any kind of conflict like that? Or?
Yeah,
Oh, you do?
definitely. I mean, that's really unfortunate. It's there's not much to do about it except for to be aware of it. You know, just try not. I think that to be naive about it and say, "Oh, it doesn't matter," is really being naive, because you always take into account, well, they're women and or they're black or they're whatever, or they're just not like me. But you just have to be aware of it and try not to do it as much, because and sometimes you fall over the other way where you're bending over backwards to
try to
listen
please
to
everyone.
yeah.
So what would be, as editor-in-chief of CMJ, your general philosophy on what, you know, gets reviewed and how it gets categorized?
Well, because the jackpot section encompasses all things, it doesn't
Tell me a little bit about how does one get on the jackpot, the big
jackpot.
the big winner?
I guess we review about 25 records a week.
Can you just describe to?
Sure.
Yeah, this is. It's
Tell you all
describing the
about it.
jackpot.
Yep.
Great.
And we get about, I'd say, I don't know, 50 records a day. So we only review about a tenth.
Do you just review records, or does that include all formats?
Well,
CDs, 7-inch, tape,
yeah.
tapes as well, or no?
Tapes.
No.
If they're demo tapes, and so would go in the futures section,
right.
which is the specific upcoming band with no release at all, and or self-release CDs we do put in there sometimes. What happens when we decide to review something is we get all this stuff in. There are a variety of editors there, about 10 of us, I guess, and we all have different mailing lists we're on and different records we get, and sometimes I'll pass stuff on to someone else if I think that they might like it better, or I just don't have the time to listen to it. But we all are listening to stuff throughout the week. And
how many tapes and records do you listen to? How do you listen to them, and how long do you give them?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't know if I would have the patience.
Well, it's really tough to do, and if you're out sick one day, or you have to go to lunch with someone or something, that's
serious
it.
music pile
You're
up.
really behind. Yeah, your desk is covered with CDs. What I do is we have. I just listen to stuff. I put it on, and if it sounds like I might like it, then I keep on listening. If it sounds like I don't like it at all, I have a search function on my CD player, and I play computer games and listen to CDs, so I can just pop them in constantly, so I'm a little bit distracted, so that I can just keep on listening. And we have, in the computer, we have a database. We log everything that comes into the office.
Amazing.
Into the system. So then we also have a rating system. So I can look in the system and see, oh, did someone else listen to this, and what did they think of it? So that we don't have to duplicate each other's work. It used to be just that you get called by people and you're like, well, I really don't know where the CD went. I have no idea. And that's really bad, because if somebody, pressed up 500 and bothered to send CMJ a copy, then it's really lame and we lost it. So that's why we instituted this.
That's great that you guys are.
We're trying to do it. I mean, it's still sometimes
so on it.
You're like,
It's half the time,
No.
But that's what's great about CMJ, because people, especially when they press up their own stuff, it seems like there's a real respect for that that CMJ has, and doesn't just get lost under, this.
Yeah, right. Well, 99%, those kind of records do not get reviewed because we don't like them. Not because they're too small or because they came in a crappy wrapper or whatever, but because we didn't like them. But every so often we find something that's very small, that's a really cool band, that we're just like, wow, this is great, we have to review it. And it's that 1% that and respect for people's, goals and talent and dreams that makes you continue listening to stuff. And sometimes
how much garbage you get.
There's a lot
That's
of stuff.
kind of frightening.
Yeah.
It can be. I mean, there's a lot of good, great music out there, and
there's more and more.
I mean,
CDs get cheaper and cheaper to press. The availability is higher, and there are more bands putting stuff out. Maybe they aren't ready for a full-length CD. Maybe they should have done a 7-inch, but maybe the costs are comparable. I really don't know about that stuff, but as far as I can tell, it seems to be getting cheaper for people to press CDs. So if they only have 5 good songs in their repertoire, and they have space for 16, they put all 16 on the record, and then
ouch.
Yeah, they should have done a 7-inch or something like that, and keep it small so that you have 2 really excellent
7-inch
songs.
has come back.
Yeah.
It's amazing because, I mean, I've got a turntable, but it's in my closet, and I think I'm going to have to pull it out because of the new resurgence in 7 inches.
Yeah, it's even vinyl's coming back a little bit, which is kind of funny. The major labels in particular are releasing records on vinyl 2 or 3 weeks before. Well, the Pearl Jam Vitalogy is the most obvious example, but they're releasing records on releases on vinyl before they put out the CD, which is really weird because people for a while were just not at all paying attention to records, to vinyl. They just, everybody got rid of their turntables, and now they're all, like you, going back in their closet to pull them out.
Mount it back on the wall, and then I can pull out my really great old records.
Right.
And there's, some people swear by records, that warm sound.
Yep.
As you're talking, I have so many questions, but now I've lost my train of thought, so I'll go back to my little questions. Let's see. We've talked about that. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the CMJ convention. Was that started with the magazine, or was that started way after? How long has it been around? Why was it created? All
that stuff. I'm not sure how soon after the New Music Report was started that Bobby started the convention. I know that was pretty close, a couple of years or so, but I'm not really sure. He wanted to bring together all the people in the industry because at the time he started it, it was a very, very small community. So people all knew each other.
The alternative community?
Yeah, the alternative community, the college radio stations. People knew each other, but he wanted to have a little place, a forum for them to talk about the issues and like, hey, we're out there too, guys.
I wish I was at the first one.
Yeah,
We'd all been sitting around a table.
I know.
all the 5 indie labels,
Exactly.
Support group.
The one college promo guy from some major label or something. And then it just grew. It got to be a place for bands to showcase to the whole alternative community, which is amazing. And just like a big gathering of people that talk about specific issues still and talk about general stuff, and then get to go see a lot of bands that get to come to New York. So.
That's great. So do you feel the CMJ convention still helps to promote new bands? Or is there
definitely.
a lot of bands that are already signed and labels trying to get their bands more visibility kind of deal?
There is a lot of that, but obviously there's always going to be a lot of that when you're in a business because that's the way it goes. And also the fact that if we have a real big name band, then we can tack along a couple bands that maybe nobody knows that are huge favorites on the staff that we're like pushing for really hard. Just as the labels are trying to get their bands on, we're trying to get the editorial staff of the New Music Report and the New Music Monthly are all giving input to the convention staff about what bands should be highlighted, what bands should be gone after. Have you called these people? Well, I hear they're in Germany now, and go for it.
That's great. So CMJ really likes to promote its favorite bands. At the convention.
Really excited if we get to go see them too.
And what about a young band from, I'm just picking a state, Illinois, that sends in a tape and they get to come and they spend their hard-earned dollars from wherever they work, and how much of a chance do you really feel it's a big opportunity for them, or just hey, come have a good time, network?
I think it's a little of both, and it really depends on luck. I think, because if you get onto a really great bill and you contact a couple people and let them know you're going, and or you take out a track on the marathon, Certain Damage, which is a double. We usually do a double CD of that series and hand it out to every registrant, so there's actually music out there for them to listen to. then sometimes they get noticed and people go
Luck of the draw. Maybe an A&R guy will be there.
Yeah, and if it's a band that CMJ has written about, then usually a couple A&R people will have read it and maybe will say, oh, hey, yeah, I read about them once. Maybe I should go check them out. But if it's a completely unknown band that makes it into the convention, it's a lot more difficult. I mean, as with anything, if people don't know it to start with, they're not going to be like, oh, I could go see these 50 bands I've heard of.
Why it's so hard to sell records if you know you haven't gotten that video on MTV.
Right. It's very true. So.
How do you feel about the New Music Seminar folding, and do you have any insights into that? I've got to put my sweater on. I'm cold.
Well, okay. I had actually heard, there have been rumors going around that somebody has bought the New Music Seminar name and is going to be putting on convention in July. I think that it's too bad that it folded because it served its own, it was going after its own kind of niche and we were going after ours, and luckily we didn't really, not that much, because our convention was staying a lot more narrow in sticking to the alternative stuff, and I believe, as far as I can tell, the New Music Seminar was branching out to all types of music and was trying to get a very big international vibe going. There was a lot more big business involved, like you'd see a lot more like big executives walking around, I thought.
And like thousands of young artists trying to find A&R people to give their tapes to.
Lots of people that, there were those big people, and then there'd be all the people that were in a band once or something, and were wandering around like, hey, this is a big party, and so I think maybe it just got too big and not focused enough for people that were in the industry and wanted to come to learn stuff, or maybe not learn, but hang out with people. It was just too big.
I agree. I mean, I had to stop going. It just, for me, it just became just too big, too crowded, and it wasn't.
So, but it's too bad, though. I mean, I think that when the New Music Seminar for so long was like the seminar to go to, and the CMJ convention was another seminar to go to, and I think we had definitely surpassed them in the last couple of years. And once you become the king of the hill, people tend to pelt you more with rocks. So I think that we're going to get more criticism from people that now have no other outlet.
Because they expect you to take up the slack?
Right. And because if you're the only game in town, then people find a lot to be critical about, which maybe we haven't changed anything, but there's always things to be critical about. So I think that that it's just too bad there's not more different options for people to go to convention-wise.
We agree. To what do you attribute the incredible visibility and power of college radio, and to quote myself exactly, and CMJ for that matter, on the music industry? I mean, it is, for instance, we interviewed a band called Spell, great band on Island Records, not too long ago, and basically I said, well, how did you get this deal? Well, one of our friends sent a tape into CMJ and they loved it, and they reviewed us and put us on the cover of the magazine with our home phone numbers. And I don't know if you're familiar with Spell. And that's incredible power for
I think that
magazine to have.
Yeah, it's, I guess once again, if you're the only ones doing it, that and people are kind of hunting out there looking for anything new, that if they can pick up stuff out of our magazine that maybe they can't get in either Los Angeles or New York, if we get the tape from, like you're saying, Illinois or something like that.
Spell was from Denver, right? They were from Denver. Now, is that just a lucky break, or I mean, or does that happen a lot?
I think it happens a lot. I think, from what I hear, there's a lot of A&R people read the reviews, not just in the Futures section, but also in the regular Jackpot section, because we get review CDs of all, like from tiny labels to huge major labels. So the huge major labels are looking at the lesser labels to find out what they can get, and then it's like a little feeding chain.
I'm just really curious how this all works. Is it that the labels are not, I don't want to insult anyone, but not doing their, I mean, they get tons of product.
But
is it, or is it just that they trust? You guys obviously have such a great reputation.
It's if you've been in the industry for a while and you've been reading CMJ, you can probably, and maybe you've met a couple of us, you can probably figure out what we like. And if you find that your taste goes with one of the writers, you'll be like, hey, what's that? It's an easy way. It's not the only way. I certainly wouldn't say it's the only way.
Right.
And these people get thousands and thousands of records, but maybe if they get one record and they actually see a review of it, maybe they'll pick it up sooner.
I see.
I'm not, because they're just doing anything. They're usually much more aware than some of us on the staff of what's new and what's coming out, but they have to be aware of everything that's new and coming out so they don't miss something, like one of the zillions of things that becomes popular. It's constantly gathering information.
Do most of the bands review that, well, they're on either, well, major labels, indie labels, or, you know, self-released albums. Do you review these records whether they've already gotten college airplay, or does that coincide with what would make an album interesting if you start seeing it showing up on the college charts?
I get asked this question a lot because I talk to a lot of people that send me music. And I'll say, no, we passed on it for review. And I'll say, well, it's doing really well at these stations. I say, that's great.
Right.
But we passed on it for review. I don't listen, I don't wait for the college stations. I mean, if I take a couple reports, which is, you know, the individual reports from the college stations that we then compile into a big chart, and I see something, once again, if I see something and it's also on my desk, I'll put it in the CD player, but if it's doing well on stations, there's tons of records doing well on stations, and we can't review all of them, and if I actually did listen to it and didn't like it, I won't do it, but maybe if I haven't listened to it yet, and I see a couple things popping up, I'll grab it and put it in the CD player sooner. So I don't go by what airplay is. So.
Also a question I had a little further down the interview, but it's coming up. Would you suggest to new bands, put out your own product, go out, you know, do it yourself? How easy is that, or how difficult is it without, you know, independent radio promotion, which is a whole other issue I want to get into with you, but we can just stay on this specific question. Would you recommend it for young bands? What would you recommend?
I guess I'd recommend that bands put something out if they can afford it and stay realistic. If they can get a little groundswell in their local scene and get things played.
Get a following as well, a little buzz going.
Yeah, it's not going to happen overnight, but it's not, and unless you've got friends or you are popular in the community, it's hard to get airplay because there are so many people calling these stations from all over trying to get on their playlist. So that even if you're getting played, sometimes you don't get recorded because your slot has been taken up by somebody that is calling them from Los Angeles or New York and asking them to please chart their record, even if it hasn't done as well as the other release. So it's very, very difficult to get airplay. But
that's amazing, isn't it? I mean, I would actually like to delve into the whole idea of radio promotion and how it all works. Do the labels have field promoters that actually go right out to the colleges?
Yes.
I mean, this has become a really,
it's a big business,
deal.
And it, I think actually the biggest college promotion staffs, they've been whittled down a little bit lately. They seem to be just a little bit smaller, but yeah, most national college promotions people have field staff in certain cities, in market cities, that call stations in their community and go visit. And sometimes they are actually, sorry.
That shows you just how powerful, you know,
I mean,
college radio is in breaking new bands, and all the labels know this.
Indie promotion people and
we're back,
staff stuff.
And we're talking about independent radio promotion and the powers that be.
Yeah, there's so many people calling these stations. It's amazing that these music directors can actually go to college, be on the air, do their music director responsibilities, and take all these phone calls. But if the catch-22 is if they don't take the phone calls, then they get cut off from service. So they won't get these records to play on their station to then, you know, make them popular and make them like cutting-edge stations for the college students in the community to listen to. So they're kind of stuck. You know, they don't really have a lot of leverage. They can say, well, I won't play your records, or I won't be bullied. I'll play your records when they're good, and I won't play them now when I don't like this particular release. And then the person can say, fine, well then you're not going to get any more of our records. And they're stuck.
Really bad.
It's really bad. But I mean, I think that there are a lot of music directors that have managed to balance,
keep their integrity.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I'm not going to say they're all corrupt or they're all saints, because they're not. But
what if they want a gig at a label when they get out of school? That could.
That comes into play far more often than it should, because there aren't a lot of jobs that are there post college. There are a lot of people that are in our dialogue section.
Which I love. Yeah. It's a great section.
we have a forum for subscribers to write in and talk about concerns, and sometimes it's, hey, we've got the new blank record coming out. You know, I'm going for ads this time, or a lot of time right around April and May, it's, well, I'm graduating in May, and if you'd like to get a hold of me, I'm here at the station. And I think that a lot of music directors are a little bit unrealistic about the ability to get a job in the industry
So tough, right?
Yeah.
It's tough as being a musician, isn't it?
Yeah, very tough.
Maybe tougher?
Yeah, there's not a lot of jobs out there, and there's more and more people deciding, well, I'm just going to do it myself, and indie promotion companies starting up, so the field's getting even more clogged. I mean,
wow.
Anytime that there's a big layoff at a company, a couple new indie promoters start because they've been senior management at a record company, and then they were let go because of higher senior management coming in that was different, changing or whatever, and they can't get another job in the industry, so they put out a shingle
really
and start
rough.
themselves, so then the whole field gets even thicker with people. It's just amazing how many people call. I mean, I get a lot of calls, and I don't think that's anything compared to what radio stations get.
So are we getting a pretty open-minded view of what the station's like, you know, as far as what charts? Are we being really influenced by the large, you know, powerful record companies with a lot of bucks to spend on radio promotion? I think that's basically what I think wanted.
I think that it's kind of both, and I think that the good thing about the pressure and such is that there are a lot of really great bands on major labels, and the indie major controversy that was so hot in the 80s at every convention you went to, I don't think applies anymore, because those same indie bands are now on major labels. What does apply
or
is
the major label picked up the indie label.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that there is a lot of there are a few companies, and if you watch the charts, you can sort of tell who they are, that really get to every single station and get them to report their record, and everything falls into place for them. And they are getting a lot of pressure, but it's also such a known thing. It's not like secret anymore. It's not like a tiny little community, so that people are more able to say, no, I can't do that, or sure, I'll do it, or whatever. People just know about it more. But there are a lot of major labels calling all these stations.
Support amongst the college DJs in dealing with this? I mean, that's a hard thing for.
Usually in dialogues, there'll be every so often there'll be someone who says, you know.
Can you explain the dialogue section, which is a great section that really. I like it because you really feel a part of the industry and really at a very grassroots level.
We accept little essays or comments or whatever that are up to about 250 words in length, and the only requirement is that you subscribe to CMJ, or your company does, and you can only submit a dialogue every other week, so you can't be in there every week. And it's a place for people to sound off about things. It's supposed to be kind of like I said, reaching out to the community, not via CMJ or not via anything that's sort of canned, but just like you typing in and sending it in and we print it. And there used to be a lot of people that would get all riled up about things and do issues, and there hasn't been that much lately. But
you don't edit it. You let them speak their mind.
Edit it. The only thing we edit is if they use the wrong form of its or something like that. I mean, we edit for grammar, but we don't edit for content ever.
That's great. That's really great that you have that format for people.
Yeah, it's sometimes the most popular section.
I like it.
Skip our writing. Go right on to theirs.
No, got to read it all.
It's fine.
Let's just take a second and show our viewers this great, new, improved, wonderful CMJ. This is the CMJ Weekly. And this was someone you reviewed?
Yeah, we have a.
I mean, it was kind of an interview, sort of.
Yeah.
But you don't do much of that usually.
Well, we do. We now
Who is this? Lois?
Yeah, Lois is on K, and she's actually doing super great on our top 150 chart. And we have a section in there called The Last Word, which is an interview form, because we used to get called all the time.
The Last Word, and it's
all the way in the back.
Section?
Yep.
Here it is.
Yep.
Go picture.
Yep.
There it is, The Last Word.
We never had a place for interviews before, and we never had, I mean, I'd get called about interviews, and it's like, we just don't do them. And we got frustrated. Right. Some of the people that wanted to write longer pieces, or the people that wanted to additionally cover a band after we'd written about their record, or maybe we had gone to see them live, there wasn't much more we could do if we really liked a band. And now we have the opportunity to have a page devoted exclusively to one artist, or to a genre, or to a label or something. And it's
Will you be doing more of this?
Staff, yeah.
So there'll be more of this?
Yep.
Just one, or will there?
Yeah, just one Last Word, one artist per week,
That's
or one.
So you're not going to expand into doing interviews?
It's really tough right now with our staff to even get one interview a week.
To do it all, to do everything.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you a question. Does CMJ take any political or social stands on specific issues? Does it get involved in, I don't know, rock the vote, women's issues, anything like that? Supportive?
We did. We were involved, I guess, now this is just before my time, in one of the Rock for Choice compilations on Rykodisc. And we don't take any specific stands in the magazine, because there's not really a forum for it. We try to do what we can. We give free boosts to Lifebeat, and some of us are involved in stuff outside the office, but no, we don't really have a forum for that. We kind of try to, I don't say we try to stand apart, but we just don't have a place for it, and it just hasn't come up. I mean, everybody there is very political and involved in stuff.
I imagine so.
But it's not something that really leaks over into the magazine.
Would you be reluctant to review any artist or band that really stood for, you know, either were very racist, or, you know, sexist, or condoning kind of negative stuff? I don't know.
I think that
try to stay away from that.
No, I don't think we would censor stuff that way. I mean, a lot of the hip-hop records that we review in the beatbox section, they're racist and sexist, and misogynist and whatever else. And I don't want to just limit it to hip-hop, because all types of genres have that. But
rock and roll can be very racist also.
But if it's good music, then it's not up to us to censor that. It's up to us to say, there's some stuff you might find offensive here. But for example, you know, we featured Ice Cube, and Ice Cube's pretty far gone and pretty radical in what he says, but it's not up to us to say, well, that's not right, because that's censorship. I don't
After all, this is America.
Right. I just don't think that
Freedom of the press.
Appropriate for us. Anyway, as an alternative music tip sheet, to start saying, well, that's wrong and that's right, because that's taking a stance that I don't feel comfortable with. I don't think it's right to censor people. I mean, if the music sucks, if the band's just not good,
that's all that matters.
All they're doing is saying, I hate this particular group, and it's not in a good context, it's not in a good musical form, then I would reject it out of hand and be very happy to have done so. But I mean, I think it would be naive to censor certain people, not censor other people, because everybody has certain sexist and racist beliefs. If they come through in their music, then that's sometimes too bad, but it's not up to us to say no or yes.
I'd like to know what your favorite bands or artists are.
It's a tough one. I guess, well, the stuff I like most is, surprisingly enough, I like a lot of urban music and a lot of dance music, and then a lot of very hard-edged noise stuff. I don't really like, this is a joke in the office, I don't really like straight-ahead rock and roll. It's not anything.
Not your thing?
No, it's not what I was kind of brought up on or anything. And right now, my two favorite artists is Desiree, who's on VH1 like every minute now, and I like Soundgarden a lot. And who else do I like? I forget. I have a lot of favorite bands.
Well,
but
you don't have to go on and on. I just wanted to know what your particular, tastes are.
I'm the resident dance person, I guess, at CMJ, just by default, not because I'm insane about it, but I'm one of the only people there that really loves dance music and loves. I really love black female singers. I just go nuts for them.
And who's your fave? All-time fave? Come on.
I guess Anita Baker.
She's amazing.
Yeah, and I love Luther Vandross too. But
Luther gives me goosebumps.
Yeah. Oh,
A house is not a home. Every time I hear it, like the hair on my arm, just ooh.
I know, me too. I've seen him 6 times now, and it's just, I always feel so goofy going. I'm like, hi, I edit this alternative sheet. I'm going to see Luther.
Wrap it up. Oh, God, I have so many more questions. Let's see. Can I ask one more question, Wolf? Do I have time? All right, here's a heavy one. How often do you find that bands are making it, riding on the wave of like a new sound or movement, rather than in your mind being truly gifted, original?
I think that happens a lot, but I don't think that it's a conscious thing on the part of the bands. I think that they're like, hey, this is really great, and this is the kind of music we want to play. And if it sounds too much like Green Day or too much like Soundgarden, two bands that are getting that are very
huge,
popular,
right?
that all of a sudden there are bands popping up out of nowhere. Well, it's not because they've consciously modeled themselves after these bands. It's because they were influenced by them, and they're just not as original and maybe not as talented or have as many great ideas as those bands. But it happens a lot. We've been getting a deluge of releases that sound similar to things that are really popular now. Because instead of going for like mainstream sounds, this is the mainstream now, so they're playing a lot more of that stuff and they're sending it to us.
Do you think there's any kind of rhyme or reason to the music business why some bands make it big and other bands maybe that are really great don't? Any insights into the music business in general, the wacky world of music?
I think it's luck. I think it's a bit of clever marketing and the right timing. I also think that if a band or a style sticks around for long enough, then eventually there'll be a band that does it really well and that will popularize it for all the rest of the bands. I think that the pop punk thing like Green Day, I mean, that's just been the explosion of this year. But that stuff's been around forever. Green Day's been around forever. And finally, a generation after everybody was hopping up and down and pogoing to melodic punk pop, there's all these kids that are 10 years, 15 years younger than me that are doing the same thing that finally like it too, because it's been around for a while. It's not, yeah. I mean, it's just
and now we have people with green hair, like over there. Okay, we've got to wrap things up. There we go. Woman with green hair. Tribute to Green Day. I think we've covered so much, and I really enjoyed this interview immensely. I've learned a lot, and I'm so glad you could join us. We have Megan McLaughlin, the editor-in-chief of CMJ, with us, and you've been listening to New York, New Rock. I'm Ivy, and there's Wolf, who will one day come in front of the camera so you can see his wolf-like self. Megan, one more thing for our viewers. If they'd like to subscribe to CMJ, can you just give them a little info how to do that?
All you have to do is call our phone number, which is area code 516-466-6000, and there's a little automated voicemail, incredibly confusing system that will tell you to go to the subscription department. We have someone in-house that does it. And
that number again is?
So don't be scared. It's
but it's worth it. It's great.
It's 516-466-6000.
Thank you so much, and go check out CMJ. Send in those tapes, CDs. It's a great magazine, and
don't call me too much.
Don't call too much, please. Thank you so much for being with us. We're New York, New Rock. Peace, love. Take care. Bye.
Goodness, you guys go on.
I have more questions. I was like, I could have
New York, New Rock, live music,